Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Dylan Hoffman, and my talk tonight is titled Finding the Human Moment, A Journey to Emotional Intelligence. So let's start on a large scale if we could. So the world today is in a bit of a social paradox. Despite being more connected than we've ever been through advancing technology, mobile devices, internet, we're still a world that's largely divided. Intergroup conflicts, civil wars, political polarization, blockades. The world of today is a very tense and hyper-emotional place. And in such an environment, walls tend to come up. These aren't just metaphorical walls, by the way. The CEO of a company called Magdell Security Systems, which is the largest border security business in the world, said this earlier this year. In the past 2 years, business has boomed. The world is changing, and borders are making a big comeback. Borders are making a big comeback. Now that's a powerful and incredibly charged statement. Obviously, we're not here today to talk about the physical walls that these companies are building, but I would ask all of us here, do we see these borders, these barriers present in our own lives? Let's talk about that. So to begin, I'd kind of like to ask a question to the group if I could. So how many of us here have ever been in a conversation with someone and then we leave it and we're walking away and we realize, wait a minute, I actually don't really remember very much of what we just talked about? Could you raise your hands if you're yeah, definitely me, for sure. So, right, I know, yeah. So it's common, right, that happens. It's so often that we start to focus on ourselves, right, and what's kind of going on in our own lives. Maybe we were thinking about our day, or we were distracted with something going on in the background, or our phone was buzzing in our pocket and we were wondering, who's calling me? Whatever it is, the point is that it happens a lot. Now, what's going on here is what I like to call the passive-active barrier. And although it's not a physical wall of sorts, it is a very real phenomenon. So, what's the difference between these two things up here? Author John Steinbeck once wrote, "I wonder how many people in my life I've looked at but never seen." That's the difference. It's the difference between hearing something and listening to it, which I can guarantee this guy is doing right now, by the way. All right, it's the difference between looking at something and seeing it. So you see, over here on the passive side, what's happening is the world is engaging us. It's one directional. What's happening is accidental. There we go. Is accidental, right? It doesn't really involve any action or thought on our part. Now, over here, on the active side, which, if you haven't figured out by now, is kind of where we want to be, we are engaging with the world. It's reciprocal, all right? What's happening is intentional and purposeful. Conversations, connections, relationships, these things don't just happen, right? No, they require our action and our attention. The problem is, like I said, we're often so preoccupied with ourselves, with our agendas, with our worries, with our smartphones, with our social media accounts, that we miss out on so many opportunities to be more active participants of the world around us. This feeds into what I call our collective blind spot. And it's what prevents us often moving from here to here. So then the question is, how do we bridge that gap, right? How do we cross that barrier? Well, this, I believe, is the role that emotional intelligence plays. So, for the purposes of this talk, let's define emotional intelligence first. We'll define it as a way of acting and thinking that tunes you in to the emotional states of yourself and of others. When you do that, you start to identify and understand how you're feeling and how others are feeling. And then you can change your actions based on that information, right? So when you're acting with emotional understanding and you're doing that, it really empowers us, you and me, to open up, to lower those walls and those barriers and connect in a way that's more intimate and meaningful. A we instead of you and me. Okay? So let me see here, a couple of examples of emotional intelligence, if I could. Well, first of all, emotional intelligence is important for so many things, right? Emotional intelligence supports effective communication, working well with a team, making smarter decisions, building trust, adapting to change, and it's constantly present in our lives. So a couple of scenarios, if I could. Emotional intelligence is present when your boss calls you into her office. Is she tense and upset, or is she relaxed and playful? Is the news going to be bad, or is the news going to be good? Or maybe she just asked you in because she wants a Thai restaurant recommendation. I don't know. Emotional intelligence is at work when you're on a first date. You're eyeballing each other and you're thinking to yourself, is she interested in me? Am I interested in her? Maybe she's not interested in me, but that's starting to make me more interested, but I don't want to show her that I'm more interested, right? Emotional intelligence is present here in this very space. Okay, I look out at a crowd of people and I think, are they engaged or are they bored? All right, are they relaxed from the weekend, or are they pissed because it's Monday, it's the start of the work week, right? So emotional intelligence helps you figure all of those things out and then adjust your behavior accordingly. And the best part is, emotional intelligence is an ability, meaning it can be taught and it can be learned. So, how do we learn this? How do we become more emotionally intelligent? It is very, very simple, I promise you. I'm going to walk through 4 verbs, all right? These aren't revolutionary, these aren't new discoveries, but they are powerful. And when used in succession, they can help you to communicate more effectively, build healthier relationships, and of course, be more emotionally intelligent. So what are they? Number 1, absorb. Number 2, appreciate. Number 3, participate. And number 4, build. Let's dive in. So, number 1, absorb. All I'm really asking of you guys here is to be more curious. Be curious about yourself, about the world around you, and about the people around you. Because you see, curiosity breeds awareness. It forces you to slow down, quiet yourself, and be present in the moment as you explore and learn. Right? And when you start to do that, then you can recognize what's going on around you, right? You can recognize how other people are feeling and how you're feeling. So number 2, appreciate. So now that you're absorbing and listening and paying attention, it's time to actually appreciate what's coming in. All right. Now, I'm sure that many of you here have thought to yourself at one time or another, well, okay, great, fine. It's fine that you're feeling that way, that's happening, but that doesn't really affect me. That doesn't really impact me. So I'm not going to care. Why should I care? Fine. Sure. Maybe you've said that. But let me tell you this. Human beings are actually hardwired to care. See, we have these really cool things called mirror neurons. All right. So let me walk you through the process here. When you feel an emotion, a part of your brain lights up. Okay, and an imprint is left there of that emotional experience. Then, when you see someone else expressing and feeling that same emotion, that same part of your brain lights up again, as if you are feeling that emotion all over again. You see, we are actually biologically coded to feel what others feel, to care, and to empathize. All right, and so when you appreciate what's happening, right? And you're able to recognize what's going on. Why am I feeling so uncomfortable right now? Why are you so angry with me? Appreciation helps us figure those things out and then actually do something about it rather than just let it be, rather than just let it fester. So, point number 2, listen to understand. Don't just listen to reply. That brings us to number 3, participate. So now it's time that we actually do something. Obviously, it's not just enough to say, aha, I understand, and then not actually do anything about it, right? No, you need to incorporate that understanding so that you can tailor your communication and behave in a way that's more beneficial for you and for those around you, right? The thing is interactions are moment-to-moment experiences. They require you to focus, to adapt, and to actively participate. All right? And when you start to do that, that's when you really start to form a connection. All right? And that brings us to point number 4, which is build. So when you start doing those first 3 things, when you start absorbing, appreciating, participating, this really brings us to what we care about, which is building that connection, building that relationship. Now that you understand what's going on in here, and you can see that and feel that in others, that's the human moment. All right? You know it. You felt it. It's that moment when what's going on right here starts to matter more than what's going on out there, or what's going on right here in my cell phone. Okay? That's how you build relationships that are symbiotic, compassionate, and loving. So those are the 4 verbs. Now here is the kicker. And guys, I'm telling you, out of all the things I've been talking about today, this is what gets me jacked up the most. All right? So the frontal lobe, let me circle it right there for you. The frontal lobe is the part of our brain that supports and controls these actions, okay? That supports emotional and social intelligence. Now, the frontal lobe, get this, is the last part of our brain to mature anatomically. The last part. What does that mean? It means everyone in this room has the ability and the opportunity to actually learn these things, right? To make them habits and ingrain them in our daily lives. In short, to become emotionally intelligent. I'd like to end with a sentiment, if I could. All this stuff that we've been talking about, right? It really does transcend all of the traditional boundaries that exist in our lives. I don't care if you're white, black, yellow, orange, red, purple, old or young, rich or poor, gay or straight, where you come from, who you pray to. Okay, we are all of this earth. We are all human beings, and part of what makes us human is our capacity to feel. And if you can feel, you can care. And if you can care, you can connect and love. So go out there and do it. Thank you.